G'day, welcome to my little demo of NixOS Anywhere. Just a quick disclaimer that I'm learning how to use Open Broadcaster and do the edits, so forgive me if the audio is not great. Okay, so the agenda for this video is we're going to talk about why would we want to do this, little diagram, we'll talk about some of the configuration. We'll run through the high-level steps for doing the NixOS Anywhere remote install, and then we'll run through it. The install only takes a few minutes. It might be a bit long for the video, but you can fast forward if it's too tedious. So Nix is a lot of things. The little triangle here sort of highlights what it is and what it isn't. It's a language. It started life as a package manager, and now there's also the operating system. And so in this case, we're using the Nix language to define the configuration for an entire operating system, and that operating system is built out of the Nix packages. The primary motivation for this video is to show people how to use NixOS Anywhere to do a remote reinstall of the system. This also includes using the Disko module, and that module allows you to declaratively define the disk layout that you want, and as part of the reinstall, it'll go and reformat all of the drives exactly as you've told it to. Why would you want to do this? Well, the main reason is that many cloud providers won't provide NixOS out of the box. So you can get Ubuntu or Fedora or whatever, but not necessarily Nix. And of course, you want to have a completely declarative system. You've had trouble with Salt, you've had trouble with Ansible. Going with Nix solves all those problems, so it's awesome. This is a way to let you convert existing systems over to Nix, and everything's wonderful. I'm doing this little demo just at home, so I've got my machine and I'm SSHing actually through my firewall to another segment of the network where I've got a Ubuntu system running, and then we're going to convert it over to Nix. The system, I call it L2 because I'm really creative with my names. So the steps for doing this are configure the Nix system. Typically that is grab another one of your Nix configs, copy it, make some small changes to it to suit the particular use case you've got, and you're pretty much there. In this case, because we're doing the remote install, we don't get the opportunity you normally get when you're installing locally to set the password for the user. So, normally you install Ubuntu or whatever, and as part of that process, it lets you set up a username and a password. You don't get that opportunity remotely. So what I'm recommending we do is in the Nix config, we will set an insecure password. That'll allow the system to come up. We can then log in, change the password to something secure, and we're good. A lot of the Nix people are very security conscious, and so I see many of them using TPMs and YubiKeys and all of these other more secure methods, and it's definitely something I'd like to work on, but I haven't done that yet. So once the system's ready to go, we need to get the Ubuntu system ready for us. One key requirement is that we've got to be able to SSH in as root because we've got to do privilege commands, right? We're going to basically kexec into a new kernel that's going to go and do the install process. So we need root. I'll give some demo on how to do that. It's obviously really straightforward. Then we'll test it, make sure it does work, and then we're going to do the install. Okay, here we are in VS Code. I've got open my NixOS folder that's got all my different Nix configurations. I'm under desktop. L2 is the system we're looking at. What I've got open is the make file, which is what I use just as a shortcut for running all the commands that you need to run. I've got a rebuild command here that would be run locally on the system once it is NixOS to rebuild the system to match the new target state. And the one we're interested in for this demo is the Anywhere target, where you can see it's doing this nix run, NixOS Anywhere. It's generating the hardware configuration. It's telling it to do this over SSH, and we're telling it which particular NixOS configuration to try to build. So we've got a flake.nix. This is a little bit more complicated than it probably needs to be. We're using the NixOS unstable packages. Honestly, I find the Nix packages very stable anyway, so that's fine. We've got this other module, which is the home manager, managing a user's home directory, so like all the dot files and so on. Then importantly, we've got the Disko module, which is the one that does the partitioning. And in this case, I've got something a bit unusual is I'm doing what's called an overlay. So I'm replacing the default package that's in the Nix unstable packages. I'm replacing host access point daemon, host APD. The current version doesn't work well with the Nix that I have. I've got some Intel AX210s, and basically I need to run the older version and then apply a patch. So that's what's happening here. Little bit unusual, but it works fine. Then a bit further down, this is the system we're building. So we're saying L2 is the name of the system, and we're building an entire NixOS system, and we're including some modules. The main thing that this config is doing is pulling in this configuration file, and then the configuration file itself is pulling in lots of other little configs. I won't go through all of those, but you can make a pretty educated guess, right? Node exporter, Prometheus, Grafana, etc., etc. This is the Disko configuration. So this is the one that's telling it about the disks that it needs to install on and what the partition layout, right? So we're going to have a new GPT partition table, and we're going to have a boot partition, ESP partition, right? VFAT, and then the rest of it's going to be logical volume manager managed. So logical volume group, we are creating 2 of them. So there's a swap. I've got the swap size to be the same size as the amount of RAM in the system, so we can hibernate. And then I'm telling it to use the rest of the drive, or 90% of the rest of the drive. So there's a little bit spare if we want to create another partition for some reason. And I'm doing XFS. You can do ZFS. I probably should. I haven't played with that. So that's something maybe for a future video. For those interested, really the main configuration file for this system is the host APD config. This is the one that's setting up all the Wi-Fi interfaces. It's setting up Kia as the DHCP server, Power DNS as the DNS, RAD VD for Slack IPv6 allocation. We're using systemd network D, so it defines a bridge. There's a dummy interface in the bridge that allows the bridge to come up before host APD attaches the Wi-Fi interfaces to the bridge. And you can see here we're telling network D to not try to handle any of the Wi-Fi interfaces. You can see here the main Ethernet port gets configured. We can also see here that we're setting cake on the bridge interface. So it's kind of nice that network D can set the QDisk for us pretty easily. So yeah, that's the main thing I want to show you. All the configs are in my GitHub, so you can view those later. Okay, so here we are. We're going to SSH into the freshly installed Ubuntu system. There we go. And just prove that I can't SSH as root. I don't know what the password is, so obviously can't do that. So on the Ubuntu system, we can see it's running prehistoric kernel. It's 2204 LTS. I find the quickest way to set up the SSH directories is just to SSH to yourself. Okay, so we can see it set up SSH, and we've got our things. So let's find my key. Okay, there's the public key. Beautiful, and now we should be able to SSH as root. Boom, we can. Great. All right, so now let's do the remote install of the system. So here I am in the NixOS desktop L2 directory. This is all those files I showed you before in VS Code, and we've got the make file, and the IP has changed, so let's just edit that. Okay, so I think I covered this already, but we're going to hit the Anywhere target. It's going to reinstall L2 over SSH. So let's give it a try. Make Anywhere. Okay, we see it's connected. It's copying some files over, so that's going to kexec into that. It's got an init.rd, so it brings up a whole file system inside the new kernel. We can see we got disconnected, but we should get reconnected via SSH again in a moment. I can see on the system behind me, where the host is, that because the kernel changed, it doesn't. I think the kernel doesn't really know about the Radeon graphics card that's in there. Anyway, so we can see Nix is now starting to look at the derivations. I've already built the system before, so all of the system is already set up in what we call the Nix store. So it's already pre-cached everything. So it just went through and recalculated the hashes, found that it's got copies of everything it needs to do this install process. There's probably more things I could remove from the config. Basically, I took my desktop config and took some bits out, but clearly I've got more left. Here we go. We can see it's doing some petition setup. So boot petition. Oh, there we go. It completely reinstalled it. I don't think I saw it do the disk layout, but I promise you it did. So I'll stop the video there. Once the system reboots, I'll SSH in and show you the shiny new Nix system. Okay, so the system rebooted and it came back up. Let's have a look. Oh, what am I trying to do? SSH keygen minus R 52. Okay, I'm logged in. Here we are, shiny new kernel. We can see host APD with all the configs. We can see Kia. We can see Power DNS. And you can see I put them in different slices as well, right? So it's kind of fancy. Prometheus, bunch of Prometheus services, SSH, etc., etc. So pretty nice system. We can see the network interfaces. There's all the network interfaces. I think I've got something funny going on because I don't see any IPv6 there for some reason. I need to look at that. There we go. We've got the bridge interface. And oops, so we can see that host APD brought up the interfaces. Yeah, so full system. Oh, and let's have a look at the file system layer. LS block, right? So there's that 1 meg, the 512 meg, and then we've got the root partition, and we've got the swap 128, right? So the Disko config applied correctly. So pretty cool. Oh, I should set my password because remember I put a nasty password in. So nasty password, a new password, and we're good. I need to update the Nix config. So yeah, that's how you do remote install. Pretty awesome. I've got all the things there, so like iPerf2 running, woohoo. So yeah, kind of cool. Thanks for that.